Bad dog! Look what you did! You spilled the water everywhere.
The living room floor was Mark's daily puzzle. Every evening when he returned from work, he was greeted not just by his loving wife, Sarah, and their energetic 3-year-old, Leo, but by a sprawling landscape of toys. Building blocks were scattered like colorful confetti. Juice boxes were inexplicably flattened behind the sofa. Cracker crumbs formed trails leading nowhere. Mark was convinced that Leo was entering a highly active phase, a miniature whirlwind clad in striped overalls. Sarah, bless her patient heart, usually just sighed and smiled, saying, "He is just exploring." But Mark was curious. He wanted to see the little explorer in action. Not to scold him, but to understand how a half-eaten banana ended up inside one of his work shoes. So, on a Tuesday morning, before leaving for the office, Mark tucked a small, motion-activated security camera onto a high bookshelf, nestled between a stack of encyclopedias. The lens had a perfect view of the main play area. "All right, buddy," Mark whispered to himself, adjusting the angle. "Let's see what you do when Daddy's not looking." That evening, Mark returned home with a sense of anticipation. The living room was, as usual, full of scattered items involving a tipped-over basket of laundry and a spread of Uno cards. After dinner, once Leo was tucked into bed and fast asleep, Mark pulled out his laptop. Sarah sat beside him on the couch. "Okay," she smiled. "Ready to see what our son does all day? I just want to know how he does it. It's like he has 4 extra arms when we leave the room." The video player loaded a series of clips. Mark clicked on the longest one, from around 10:30. The footage showed Leo sitting on the rug, deeply focused on building a tall tower of blocks. Lying a few feet away, occupying a massive amount of floor space, was Barnaby. Barnaby was their large German shepherd. He was a big creature with deep, soulful eyes and a bark that sometimes surprised delivery drivers. But to the family, he was as gentle as a pillow. On screen, the block tower wobbled and fell. Leo let out a frustrated little sigh. Then, the moment arrived. Leo stood up and walked over to his cup of water sitting on the coffee table. As he reached for it, his grip slipped, the cup tumbled, the lid popped just enough, and a puddle of water poured onto the floor. "There it is," Mark whispered. "The spill." But the footage didn't show Leo splashing in it, as Mark expected. Instead, Leo froze. He stared at the puddle. Then he looked at Barnaby. The large dog had lifted his head at the sound of the spill and was slowly pushing himself up, tail wagging gently. Leo marched over to the big dog. He placed his tiny hands on his own hips, mimicking a stance Mark recognized all too well from his own days of giving instructions. "No, Barnaby," Leo's high-pitched voice said clearly on the recording. Mark paused the video, looking at Sarah in surprise. "Wait, is he—" They pressed play. Leo pointed a chubby finger directly at the dog's nose. Barnaby, who could easily nudge the child over with a playful bump, immediately lowered his ears and sat down, looking softly at the floor. "Look at this mess," Leo said, shaking his head slowly. His tone was a perfect miniature copy of Sarah's voice when she found toys in the hallway. "We do not make messes in this house, Barnaby. That is not helpful." Barnaby let out a soft sound and tried to offer a gentle lick to Leo's hand. Leo pulled his hand back theatrically. "No kisses! You have to listen, mister! You have to listen!" The toddler then walked over to the kitchen doorway, grabbed a dish towel that was hanging low, dragged it back to the puddle, and placed it over the water. He patted it down with his foot. He returned to the dog, who hadn't moved an inch. Leo sighed, a sound far beyond his years. He reached up and patted the thick fur on Barnaby's neck. "It's okay," he whispered, his voice softening instantly. "But you gotta be a good boy." The video clip ended with Leo returning to his blocks, while Barnaby laid his head down on his paws, watching his small friend with eyes full of absolute devotion. Mark sat back against the couch. His curiosity turned into pure warmth. He had gone looking for a source of the mess, and instead found a responsible little citizen who was trying to run the house in their absence. Sarah was wiping a happy tear from her eye. "Well, I guess we know who's really in charge when we're gone," she laughed softly. The clutter on the floor didn't matter anymore. What mattered was the sweet moment played out on that screen. The toddler trying so hard to be responsible like their parents, and the big, loyal animal listening to the boy's tiny voice out of pure love. Mark and Sarah watched the clip 5 more times that night. Mark decided this was too sweet to keep to themselves. He shared the clip online the next morning with the caption, "Set up a camera to check on the messes. Found the world's strictest boss instead." Within 48 hours, the video was being shared everywhere. People sent messages from around the world sharing their delight at the tiny parent, praising Leo's funny seriousness, but mostly melting over the patience and loyalty of the big German shepherd who let a 3-year-old guide him out of pure love.